Chapter 22 The Hunt. Over the next several months, William and his friends continue helping the newcomers settle in, and by mid-spring they had built each family a cabin and begun construction on their barns, outbuildings, and mills. During this time, the old towners and newcomers continue to bond. This is especially true of William, Sir John, and his daughter. And contrary to her fanciful dreams, Margaret is not that daughter. After Sir John and his family move from his cabin into their own, William continues his regular visits with Mary, usually stopping by in the evenings after his long workday on the Bonner farm. In his spare time, he is in the bush keeping up with the demands of his meat and fur business, often bringing one or more of the Bruce men along, introducing them to the Shenandoah and its finest hunting, fishing, and trapping spots. And, like so many others, Sir John becomes one of William's meat customers, making meat deliveries an excellent excuse for stopping in. Not that he needs one, considering he is almost always there helping with the project, which in due course leads to a lot of fellowshipping and bread breaking, the culmination of which finds the Irishman quickly and seamlessly becoming a fixture at the Bruce's. Bruce Cabin, along the Red Bud, just outside of Old Town, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia colony, an early morning in late spring, 1736. When William rides up, Sir John and his family are standing outside discussing issues at the family mill. He dismounts JJ and ties him to the hitching post. "Morning, all!" Sir John turns to him, standing with his hands on his hips. "Greetings, young squire. And to what do we owe the honor on this fine spring morn?" William tips his broad brim back, squinting with one eye. "Oh, well, maybe me memory's slipping, but I thought today were the day of our hunt." Caught off guard, Sir John drops his hands to his sides, mouth wide. "Oh, for the love of, you're right. I fear 'tis no your memory, but mine, young squire. I completely forgot." "Forgot? Really? Forgive me for saying, but forgetting a hunt is like forgetting to breathe." Sir John sighs. "'Tis true, but alas, I've so much happening at the mill, and as much as I wish I could, I simply canna. I hope you understand." With a wry grin, William exclaims, "I do understand. That you're losing your bloody mind." Save Sir John, the Bruces all laugh, some quietly and others not so much. William quickly holds up a hand. "All joking aside, I understand you to do what you must. That said, we can take up our hunt another time, and I'll just head out on my own." "Thank you, young squire. I look forward to it. Honestly, though, I feel guilty you'll be hunting alone." Just then, Mary, who is standing nearby, chimes in. "But why must he go alone?" "Mary, as I've said, I've pressing issues at the mill. I simply canna." With a devilish grin, she says, "Aye, but I can." Godsmack, Sir John throws back his head with raised brows. As he raises a finger to speak, Mary spins to William and chirps, "If you're no opposed, I'd like to join you and learn the ways of the hunt." As William's eyes shift to Sir John, she adds, "I've always been curious of such things. Can you no teach me?" William opens his mouth to answer when her father cuts in. "Mary, hunting is no for the likes of a young lady." Eyeballing William, "Quite the contrary. As I understand it, William here has already taken Flora hunting many a time. Or is that no true?" William clears his throat. Aye, 'tis true." "See? So tell me then, why no me?" "But Mary, Flora's a frontierswoman, woman, while you're a proper lady, raised in the city." Gesturing at her surroundings, she retorts, "Well, in case you haven't noticed, we're no in the city any more, da. So, If I'm to be a woman on the frontier, I need to learn how to be a frontier woman. Hence, I'd like to learn of this hunting then. Growing short on words, Sir John's mouth clamps shut. Frustrated, he stares at her, knowing his argument has not a leg to stand on. Keeping the pendulum swinging in her direction, she presents her closing argument. William, can you no teach me? Flora tells me you taught her. Why no me? With her final dagger thrown, William and Sir John exchange an uncomfortable glance. Sir John's mouth is just starting to open when William quickly interjects. If I may, 'tis true what she said. I did teach Flora, and she's since become quite proficient. So, if she wants to learn and you've no objections, I'd be honored to share me knowledge with her. While Sir John considers his proposal, William turns to Mary with a hand to his chin. You can, it'll be a long, hot, no to mention exhausting day, but if you're up for it, I'm happy to oblige you, Miss Mary. Slapping her hands to her hips, she gives her father a determinate glare. Well, aye or nay? Having been outmaneuvered, Sir John turns to Sarah for a lifeline, but in place of anything resembling assistance, she offers only a shrug and an expression of, why not? Glancing at his children, he sees they are steering from the issue as well, each of them offering a raised brow or dropping their eyes to the ground in silence. Desperate, he turns to William, only to find his shit-eating grin staring back at him. With a heavy sigh, he breathes. It would seem me daughter's quick wit and determination have left me no choice. Hence, I place her care in your capable hands, young squire. William flashes his signature grin. You needn't worry, Sir John. I'll take good care of her, and I'll have her home by supper. You have me word. Oh, and if you please, she'll be needing to borrow your musket. Sir John's shoulders drop in crushing defeat. Georgie, can you please go fetch me musket? Meanwhile, Sarah and the children are smiling and silently laughing at Sir John as he wrestles with his decision. Clearing his throat, William adds, And, as lovely as you are, Miss Mary, I'm pretty sure you'll want to wear something more appropriate. Some work clothes, perhaps? Mary looks down at her dress and quickly scurries off to the cabin. Moments later, she reappears with George. She is carrying Sir John's musket with her hair pulled back in a ponytail, clad in an old tan ghillie and a pair of George's old brown breeches, the pant legs neatly tucked into her moccasin boots. As she approaches, Sir John is taking the reins of his finest quarter horse from his 16-year-old son James. Standing beside the stunning bay, he watches with wonder as his eldest daughter giddily strolls across the yard. Mumbling to no one in particular, he sighs. Now there's a sight I'd never thought I'd see. Mary's brothers start shaking their heads, while Sarah and her daughters look on with devilish grins. Arms wide, Mary asks, Well, how do I look? Holding their tongues, the family forces Sir John to speak first. How do I say? 1 minute you're me bonny daughter, the next I'm mistaking you for a son. Chin up with a confident smile, Mary walks over, giving him a discreet wink as she takes the reins. Mounting the bay, she says, Careful what you say, Da. You may find me dressing like this more often. I'm so comfortable. Bring home a buck, and I may insist on it. Just then, William chimes in. Sorry, George, but you may have worn them breeches for the last time. George laughs. If she brings home a buck, she can have 'em. With that, William and his young apprentice mount up, and J.J. and the bay turn and canter away. Sarah shouts, You be safe out there. Don't worry, Miss Sarah. She's in good hands, William hollers as they tantivy away. Heading in a westerly direction, William and his pupil ride side by side, chatting. I see me da's taking a liking to you. William raises his brow, looking at her through the corner of his eye. What makes you think that? Because he let me take you hunting? She grins flirtatiously.
Aye, there's that, but I've noticed something else as well.
Oh? And what might that be?
Well, for some time now you may have noticed he's been calling you young squire. He and me ma.
Aye, 'tis true.
I just thought you should ken. Young squire is a term of endearment passed down in the Bruce clan for generations, and 'tis only used when a parson's taken a special liking to you. You should be honoured.
Of course, William had no way of knowing the term held such importance to the Bruce clan. All this time, he had simply believed Sir John had given him the nickname based on their shared secret. Believe when I say, I am. With a flutter of her eyes, she replies,
As well you should be, young squire.
As William starts to sweat, she gives him a you-know-you-want-to-kiss-me smile and asks,
So, huntsman, where are you taking me?
He smiles proudly. Actually, I prefer warrior hunter. And to answer your question, Purtle Ball Hollow. It's one of me secret spots.
Secret? What's so secret about it?
Oh, it's just a few others hunting those parts. So, I suppose in that way it's a bit of a secret.
So it would seem. And how far is it?
Oh, about 10 miles or so west of here. Mary nods.
So tell me then, are all those stories they say about you true?
Turning his eyes to the forest. What stories?
Why, the ones about you living with the Injuns and slaying bears and such.
William laughs. Oh, those stories. Sure.
Well, that weren't very convincing.
What do you want me to say?
I dinna ken. I'm just curious, that's all. So, are they true or no?
With an innocent grin, here's the thing, Miss Mary. I wouldn't lie to you if that's what you're asking.
So, the stories are true then?
Why, sure. Trouble is, they get distorted.
But you really lived with savages?
Nay, I lived with the Piscataway, and to be clear, they're no savages. They're good people, and they treated me like family. And they're very smart. I learned a lot from them, and I'm grateful for the time I spent with them. Ashamedly,
Please forgive me. I had no idea.
You needn't ask forgiveness, Mary. Most folks respond that way, but only because they dinna ken the Piscataway, Shawnee, or Injuns in general for that matter, primarily because they've never spent any time with them. All they ken are the rumors they hear. Taking in his word, she replies,
You're right. People fear what they dinna ken.
Precisely. And dinna get me wrong. When I first encountered them, I feared them too. But over time, I came to understand and love them like family. Riding at his side, she gazes at him with a look of understanding and admiration.
I see.
Pulling his beaded necklace from his shirt, he says, You see this? Me brother Tattooin, Chief of the Piscataway, gave it to me on the morn we parted ways. I wear it to remind me of our friendship, and I'll be wearing it when they put me in the ground. Mary pulls her bay closer. She runs a finger over the painted clamshell and whispers,
'Tis beautiful.
As she speaks, he watches her finger delicately caress the necklace and slowly glide down his chest. She sits back in her saddle and adjusts herself, fixing her eyes on his.
And although it's nice, I'm no talking about the necklace.
William swallows hard, and with each unspoken word her eyes speak, his pulse elevates. Reaching out, she places a hand on his forearm with a gentle squeeze.
I meant your affection for him. 'Tis beautiful. Fair to say, such love is rare.
He blushes, beads of sweat forming on his forehead.
They obviously meant a lot to you,
she says, releasing her grip. Placing the necklace under his shirt, William composes himself and replies, Aye, they do. For a moment, they ride along silently. Then,
And I'm guessing you killed that bear, too.
Well, she were attacking me friend. Trying to recall his name, she says,
Tattoo.
Aye, tattooing.
Letting the syllables roll off her tongue, she says it again. Tattooing. Such a grand name.
Well, he is the chief.
So, tell me then, were you scared?
Honestly, I didn't ken. I mean, it all happened so fast. We were riding along, talking, and the next thing I ken, here comes this bear bursting from the tree line. I can't say I gave it any thought. I just reacted.
But how frightening it must have been.
One would think, but sometimes you haven't time to be scared. You just do what you gotta do.
Of course. It's just, I've never been in a situation like that.
Looking back, I were afraid for me friend's life, so I suppose that's what drove me.
With an endearing smile. Fear? Aye, but love and compassion, that's what carried you.
He nods and smiles fondly.
So your coat, just from the bear you slayed?
Aye, a gift from Tattooing and his people.
And mine?
From a small boar I shot last fall. That one were good eatin', he says, rubbing his belly. Giggling at his boyish reply, she asks,
Boar?
Aye, a male bear.
Oh.
She nods, unfamiliar with the reference. They continue their conversation until reaching about halfway to their destination. As they ride along the ridge, William stops JJ and peers out at the grand wilderness before him. With a deep breath, he gazes upon the rolling landscape with admiration. Dismounting, Mary asks,
Is this it?
William breaks his gaze and throws her a warm smile before dismounting. Almost, but nay. I just love this place. 'Tis me favorite in the whole valley. Gazing with him, she sighs.
'Tis breathtaking.
Aye, and some day it'll all be mine. But until then, I'll just keep coming here and dreaming about it.
And a magnificent dream it is, she breathes.
Magnificent indeed.
So, I thought you said we weren't there yet.
We're not, but I want to see what kind of shot you are first. Let's see what you got.
If you insist,
she says, pulling the musket from its sheath. She walks over and stands at his side. William points. See that snapped-off tree?
Aye.
Shoot the part coming up out of the ground. With a sideways glare and syrupy sarcasm, she chides.
You mean the stump?
Without looking at her, he says, Aye, shoot it. Pointing.
You mean the tiny one yonder?
Aye, that be the one. Show me what you got.
Mary glares at the protruding stump, then back at William, whose eyes remain fixed on the target. The stump is easily 40 yards away and is only about 1.5 feet in height and width. With calm, confident determination, she spies a tall birch. With a quick glance at William, she marches over and props her barrel against its thin white trunk. With a keen eye, she aligns the stump in her sights. While aiming, William sneaks in over her left shoulder and whispers, The key to good shooting is being calm. She looks at him out the corner of her eye, then back at the target. As she aims, he leans in closer, letting his warm breath caress the back of her ear, whispering, That's good. Now hold the butt firmly against your shoulder. Brace yourself and ease out your breath as you squeeze the trigger. She slowly lets out a breath. Chapow! Shattering the silence, the musket knocks Mary back into the frontiersman's arms. As he catches her, they watch as the round strikes the stump's center mast, throwing shards of splintered wood in every direction. Excited, William hoists her into the air, his eyes fixed on where the .69 caliber round buried into the wood. Great shot! Well done, Mare Bear! Spinning around, she drops the butt of the musket to her feet. Mare Bear! Stammering, he tilts his head. Is that what? Aye, that's what you called me. Mare Bear. But, with a stink-eyed grin, she pokes him in the chest, barking, Aye, you called me Mare Bear. In the time they have known each other, Mary has always seen William as an invincible frontiersman,
but right now he is caught off guard and vulnerable, as she has finally exposed the weakness in his shining armor, and that weakness is her. She pokes him softly. "Mare bear, you say?" Stumbling backwards, he stammers. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I meant no disrespect." Still staring him down, she whispers it again, only slowly and seductively. "Mare bear." Nervously, he stammers, "I—" Releasing the grasp on her barrel, she lets the musket fall to the ground. Walking straight at him, she backs him into a tree. When the back of his head smacks the tree, William glances over his shoulder in surprise. When he looks back, Mary's face is inches from his. Swallowing hard, he gazes at her like a frightened little boy. Leaning closer, she whispers, "Mare bear." As he cringes with one eye open, she pats his chest softly, whispering, "I like it." As she turns to walk away, she adds, "Everyone else just calls me Mary, or Mary Elizabeth. But not no more, young squire. Mare bear suits me fine." With a huge sigh, William relaxes against the tree. Then a thought occurs to him, and he pops forward with a raise of his hand. But before he can get a word out, Mary spins around and with her sultry Scottish tone says, "But only by you, young squire." Spinning again, she saunters away. "And only when we're alone. At least for now." William shakes his head. "Wait, what?" Stopping dead in her tracks, she turns and stomps back to him until they are face to face. Gazing into his eyes with her baby blue, she says, "William Bruce, can you no see? I'm fond of you." William's heart explodes, and as that familiar warm sensation washes over again, he mumbles, "Wait, you mean you're not mad?" With sweet desperation, she breathes, "Nay, you silly fool, can you no see? I've fallen for you." Struggling for words, he mumbles, "Fallen?" Slapping her hands on his chest, she gasps, "Only from the moment I set eyes on you. My God, William, you swept me off me feet. And when I heard your sweet voice calling me Mare bear, oh, me heart just leapt from me chest." Like a schoolboy, he stammers, "It did?" "It's just, I canna have you calling me that in the company of others, especially no me family, and certainly no me da." Again he says, "Aye, what I mean is, he may be fond of you, but it's just too soon. He'd never understand." Shaking his head, he mumbles, "Understand?" Taking his hands, she presses into his chest, peering deeply into his eyes, and sighs, "Honestly, I didn't understand it myself." Dumbfounded, he starts to nod, then shakes his head confused. "All I ken is how you make me feel, and I dinna want that feeling to end." Trying to keep up, he shakes his head again. She sighs, "At least, no because of what the others are thinking or saying." He looks down at her listening as she takes his hand again. "'Tis like you were saying about tattooing. People fear what they dinna understand." Hand in hand, she drops her head down, then slowly looks back up at him. "What I'm trying to say is, how can we expect others to understand what we ourselves dinna understand?" Smiling, William breathes, "We?" Exhausted, she falls into his arms. The sensation comforting him like an extra blanket on a cold and blistery night. With her head resting against his broad chest, her soft, curly blonde locks gently kiss his nose and mouth. He breathes in, filling his senses with her scent. The feel of her arms embracing him and her fingers caressing his back is all so foreign and yet so right. But all too quickly the moment fades as she pulls away, the sweet scent of her hair slowly lofting away with her. Standing before her like a lost puppy, she smiles into his eyes. Then sliding her hands down to his, she gives them a gentle squeeze before turning and walking away. And just like that, William is head over heels. Snapping him back to reality, she adds, "By the way, I may never have been hunting, but me da taught me to shoot when I were a little girl." "Wait, what?" "Aye, he just never took me hunting."
"So, are we done here? I really want you to teach me the ways of the hunt," she says, walking over to retrieve the musket.
Remounting, she asks,
"Are you coming?"
With mind whirling and heart racing, he mounts JJ and leads them further west. Ball Hollow, 10 miles west of Old Town, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia colony. A sunny afternoon in late spring, 1736. A short while later, they arrive at William's secret hunting spot. As they dismount and tie off their horses, Mary scans the landscape wide-eyed. With the valley springing from its winter slumber, its portrait of new-growth trees and grassy meadows is beyond description. While she marvels at its beauty, William kneels and begins rubbing dirt all over his body. When she spots his shenanigans, she rests back on a heel, slapping her hands on her hips.
"And what in blazes are you doing?"
With dust clinging to his sweaty face like a raccoon, he pauses to look at her.
"Covering me scent."
"Well, I think you smell rather nice." They both stop, look at each other, and smile.
"At least you did before whatever this is," she says with a wave.
"'Tis no for you, silly. 'Tis for the animals."
"So, now I'm to smell like a squirrel. Is that what you're saying?"
William pauses.
"Without the dirt, I smell like a hunter. If you're gonna hunt, you can't smell like a hunter. Animals are clever. They'll sniff you out."
She giggles.
"Well, that explains why you always smell so bloody good when you leave and reek to high heaven when you return."
William laughs.
"Well, that's partly true, but you gotta remember, we're gonna be doing a lot of hiking and sweating. Plus, if we get lucky, we'll have a deer needs dressing, and that could be a little stinky too, so—" "Well, I guess it's time to play in the dirt then."
Thoroughly doused, the dusty duo heads into the bush, scanning for signs of a healthy buck. While it is not a hot day, the spring sun is beating down on them as they hike their way into the afternoon. Unfortunately, without a single sign of a deer or elk of any kind. Although, had they been hunting for squirrels or raccoon, they would have been done long ago. After several hours of hiking, William is encouraged when he comes across several clusters of fresh deerscat. Kneeling, he picks some up to determine its freshness. Leaning over his shoulder, Mary whispers,
"What is it?"
"Fresh deerscat," he says in his hunting voice. Having determined the deer were just there, William climbs up a tree to get a bird's-eye view. With any luck, he will spy where the deer headed off to. As he climbs, Mary stands below, watching his ascent, and interestingly, rolling a piece of scat in her fingers. When William stops climbing, he wraps himself around the trunk and a couple of branches some 50 feet in the air. Moments later, he looks down at her, placing his finger over his lips. She nods, and he begins his descent. On the ground, he whispers, "Looks to be a small herd of whitetails down on the valley floor just south of here. They're only about 200 yards away, so what say we go interrupt their party?"
"I'd say, what are you waiting for?"
With that, the dusty pair of warrior hunters stealthily maneuver southward, down and into the valley, where their unsuspecting prey awaits. Bruce Family Farm, just outside of Old Town, near Redbud, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia colony. Several hours later, late spring, 1736. Sir John and his sons have just returned from a long day of problem-solving at their new grist mill. After tying off their horses, George and his teenage brothers, James and John, race each other to the river to cool off. Meanwhile, Sir John takes a bit more laid-back approach. Strolling down the embankment to join them, he watches his sons dash into the river, breeches and all. Baptizing themselves in its refreshing frigidness, they splash about. As they cool themselves, he kneels and splashes some of the icy offerings on his tired face. Enticed, he lays on his belly to drink of its cool running waters. Filling his tricorn, he dumps it over his overheated scalp. Thoroughly refreshed, George makes his way up the bank, leaving his two younger brothers to frolic. As he walks up, he notices his father looking back towards the cabin. "Something amiss?" "Nay, just looking." Copping his squad, he asks, "For what exactly?" "Oh, nothing. Just looking." "Hogwash! You're looking for her, aren't you?" "Sweet Mother Mary and Jesus! You're a persistent little tart. You needn't bark at me. She's me sister." "My apologies, lad. I just worry too much." "You'll worry yourself to death. Stop. She'll be back soon enough. She's in good hands. And besides, she needs to bring back me britches." Sir John pulls his eyes away from the cabin, chuckling. "Aye, your britches." Gazing at the redbud, George says, "I'll bet they'll be riding up any moment now." Together, they watch James and John wrestle in the brisk water. "'Tis just. The sun will be falling soon, and The sound of horses catches his attention from behind, stopping Sir John mid-sentence. Spinning around, he spies the dusty duo riding up from the west, each with a buck across their lap. With a slap of George's thigh, he stands and faces them. "Looks like someone won't be getting those britches back, Georgie." George springs to his feet and spins around. "Well, look at that." They ride straight down to the river, and William waves, shouting, "Hello, gents!" "Well, hello," Sir John replies. "It looks like someone had a good day."
"Aye, a good day indeed. The best, in fact," Mary crows, sliding from her bay. William dismounts and walks over to shake their hands. When Mary walks up, she is welcomed with a warm hug from her father.
"Oh, for the love of God, Mary, go jump in the river. You reek."
Mary smacks him on the chest. "It's been a long, hot day, so I dinna mind if I do." And with that, she dashes into the redbud, breeches and all. George hollers, "But me clothes!" She yells, "They ain't yours no more, Georgie." William pokes his arm. "I told you you'd worn them clothes for the last time." Staring at the deer slung over their horses, his father declares, "By the looks of things, I'd say he were right, Georgie. What say you?" George looks at the two deer and throws his head back with disappointment. Sir John laughs. "Well then, that settles it." William looks at him, then back at the deer with a look of satisfaction. "Aye, 'twas a good day, and that daughter of yours is a hell of a shot." Sir John flashes a boastful grin and crosses his arms. "I should ken. I taught her myself." George, who is standing behind his father, rolls his eyes. William says, "I hope we didn't have you worried, but we were way out at Purtlebaugh." Sir John cuts him off. "Nary a worry in the world, young squire." To William's amusement, George rolls his eyes again. Holding his laugh, William nods. "Good." George is nodding and sarcastically smiling over his father's shoulder. Grinning, William slyly responds with a discreet nod and a raise of his brow before continuing. "Well, I were going to show Mary how to skin and butcher these beauties, but it's been such a hot one, I haven't the heart to pull her from the river." "Bloody blazes, young squire, those deer aren't going anywhere. Come, cool yourself in the redbud with us," Sir John says before dashing into the water. George jumps to his feet, hollering, "Right behind you!" Seeing them all splashing about and having a blast, William sheds his buckskin shirt and shouts, "Look out below, 'cause here I come!"